Hello everyone, this is the textured art process for this really awesome dragon. My son is a dragon lover and we used a photo for reference, but here he is sketching out what we will be doing, and then I have him sketch on the black canvas with the cardboard backing, really cheap to get at the store, for the painting. So here's some air dry clay, and I also use some wood glue. I'd recorded it backwards, so that's why you saw the glue first. But anyway, it's about a 4-to-1 ratio, so half a cup of clay to maybe 2 tablespoons of wood glue. You can also use Elmer's glue. Mix until it's creamy in order to apply it to the canvas or the board. If you're using a board, I recommend a board. You must wash your tools in a bucket of water. Do not wash clay, sand, joint compound, any other relief material down the drain. So I use a stencil to do the parts that I want to dry first and the background areas. So I like to build up from the background first. And I'm experimenting with different tools to see what will work best. As I apply the clay with my palette knife, I keep the clay covered with plastic, as you can see. But as I apply the clay, I use a brush dipped in water in order to clean up areas. Again, I'm experimenting with how to do this. You can see me slicing that skin area to make it more, up and down texture. And I use the brush again to clean up areas. I'm doing the background areas first to let them dry, so that way I won't mess them up when I do the other areas. So in between a lot of this process, I've let a lot of it dry. So I let the dragon's mouth dry quite a bit before I move on to the rest of it. Same with the building and the bricks. But anyway, I know I want the eyes and nose to stick out the most. And like I said, this is one of my first times kind of experimenting with this sort of material. So I go, okay, I want to build up this area. So I create a ridge line between the eye, nose, and horn. That is the main area that's sticking out towards the top, and then his jaw will be sticking out the most towards the bottom. So I'm working with all of this, again, making sure that I clean up my brush and use water in a bucket so I can dump it outside. You do not want this stuff going down your drain. So just building using my palette knife. I use sometimes a bigger brush, a flatter brush, in order to make it smooth. Clay does take a nice long time to dry, which I appreciated during this process because other things like joint compound obviously set very quickly. So anyway, here I am building up the nose is the last section. And then, as you can see in just a moment, I use toothpicks. So you'll see me right here. I use toothpicks and I break them off and I dip the end in glue to make sure that it will stick. And I did the top jaw first. And I had to use tweezers because my fingers are just kind of clumsy and I can't grab a tiny little toothpick like that very well to stick into the art. So anyway, use tweezers to insert the teeth. I wanted the, teeth on this side of the dragon to obviously stick out further and be more prominent. And so I focus on them, making them variable sizes. The other teeth kind of go towards the background. But yep, here I am. Toothpicks. I was like, yay, I had a material I could use that would be nice and straight, and I didn't have to craft a bunch of tiny little, columns using clay. I was very grateful that I had thought of toothpicks to use for this area. So anyway, cleaning it up, probably adding a little bit more glue around the base of each toothpick to make sure that it stayed put. And then I do the lower jaw, again, because I didn't quite know at this time how fast the clay would dry. So I do one and then I do the other, insert the teeth in where I would like them, clean it all up, make the jaw a bit more prominent. So the bottom jaw, nose, eye area are going to be the areas that stand out the most in this relief painting. And then I do all different kinds of art. I'm just do a bunch of things, have a good time. And I'm also a face painter. And so I have these really awesome stencils that I use. You saw me use some for the brick. You'll see me use some more in just a second. Here's the mountain on the right side that I painted to balance out, or that I sculpted to balance out the painting. But anyway, this scales face painting, or it doesn't have to be face painting, but this scales a stencil that I use is one of my favorite stencils. I use it for snakes and dragons and mermaids and all kinds of things, but I used my knife to kind of flatten the scales because they were, some of them kind of had clumps and poked out a bit. So I use my palette and my brush to smooth things over. As you can see, I use the little teeny tiny scale part for the stuff that's smaller and in the background. And it was really fun to work with and experiment with. This is a mud stencil. It's kind of got graffiti and stuff on it. Bricks. It's really cool. Anyway, very versatile. Enjoy all these little different elements. I had a lot of fun experimenting with this. Like I said, this is one of my first times working with this material. And then after everything dried completely, so probably for a whole day or more, I mixed gesso with matte black acrylic paint. Again, I don't know, maybe a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio. I just wanted to give a little color to the gesso. That is not necessary. You can paint the gesso by itself. But I wanted it to be black, so I mixed it in. This was so that the paint wouldn't just be absorbed by the clay, because that would be a waste of paint, just to have to keep painting, and it wouldn't allow the paint to be smoothly painted. So gesso, put it on, let it dry, then you can paint. I had my son help. I forgot to record most of the process of the painting, but here he is adding highlights. I would actually add highlights last. As you can see, we changed our minds and painted most of it black and then added the highlights. Here I am adding color to the mountain. We decided to make it fiery lava. It was really, really fun. So anyway, I hope you really enjoyed the process of this relief sculpture. I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one.